Hello, friends. It's a delight to be here today with Professor Jonathan Haidt, who is a social psychologist at New York University's Stern School of Business and the author of The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. Professor, thank you for taking time to talk.
My pleasure, Rabbi.
So with COVID-19, the presidential election, and the current racial unrest tearing apart the fabric of the nation, what are some of the moral lessons we could turn to solve the crises at hand right now?
Well, the human tendency to conflict is one that has been remarked on by all wisdom traditions. And they almost all recommend the same thing, that we need to go easier on each other, be slower to judge, quicker to forgive. Um, we live in a world of extraordinary pluralism, and that can be difficult. I think the Jewish tradition has wonderful resources. I wish I have a whole set of quotes from the Talmud when I give talks on viewpoint diversity and on the need for having other people to question our beliefs. The Jewish tradition is one of the best, maybe you can tell the story of the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. Make yourself a heart with many chambers is the line that really gets me. We have to be able to learn to live with difference and go easier on each other. And if we don't, we're just going to see these polarization cycles expand and intensify, and really bad things could happen.
So, since you brought up religion, in your research or experience, does religion have more of a positive role in the current crisis, or does it typically exacerbate underlying structural problems?
So in The Righteous Mind, I talk about the origin of morality. How did we come to be these moral creatures? And that story runs right through religion. So I'm Jewish, but I'm also an atheist, like many Jews, it seems. So I, based on the research that I've done from other scholars, based on other scholars' work, I tell a story in which humans develop the ability to make something sacred, and then they could circle around it or bow to it in unison, and that binds the group together. So religious ritual has kept the Jews together. It's been key to Muslim and Christian expansion. Religion can play a terrible role. It can be divisive. It can lead to war. But we evolved with religious rituals to bind groups together. Now, that can work to bind Americans together, especially if the leadership calls for that. But it can also divide, and our political divisions are becoming increasingly a divide, not between different religions, but between the religious on the one hand, who tend to now vote more on the right, and the non-religious, who are more on the left. So religion is deeply woven in with the history of morality and with the more recent history of America's divisive politics. But I do think that religious approaches to dealing with identity questions, identity issues, such as in the civil rights movement, religion does often, or activists who come from a faith tradition often are more, they're doing it more with love and forgiveness, whereas activists who are not coming from religious tradition, I think, tend to be a little more, angry or confrontational. That's just a general observation. I can't prove
Very
that.
interesting. So, just the last question for you today. Going beyond all the negative news of the day, and there's so much, what do you think are some of the positive trends around the world that show the triumph of moral reasoning and ethics? And how do we promote these victories of the human spirit?
Well, my own research is on how our reasoning isn't actually all that reliable. It's really more a matter of intuition and feeling. And then that drives our reasoning. And we can all see that in our opponents. That's obvious that they do that. But you know what? They think the same about us. But I do think that there is a direction to history. I do think that there is moral progress. And I think we can see certainly over the last several hundred years, and even over the last couple thousand, the rate of murder, the rate of death keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. Even now, with all our conflicts, it's nowhere near as violent as it was in 1968. So the long trajectory of human progress is less violence, more rights, more widely distributed rights, more concern about women's rights, gay rights, animal rights, nature, sustainability. The long trend is upwards, But there are reversals, and right now I think we're going through one in which we've lost our social cohesion. There is an increasing risk of violence, although so far rates have been still fairly low. So in the long run, people should keep their eye on the long run. It's always been wrong to bet against humanity and to bet against America. And 20, 30, 50 years from now, I think things will be a lot better. 3 years from now, who knows?
Friends, I can't recommend enough that you check out The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. Whether you are a social psychologist or a philosopher interested in humankind, if you are merely invested in the future of American culture and discourse, I recommend it. Professor, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.